The morning sun was bright over New York City, but the cold still slipped through the glass walls of one of its most luxurious restaurants. The lunch hour had barely begun when an elderly man quietly stepped inside. He wore an old brown coat, creased at the shoulders, and shoes that looked like they had walked a lifetime. His hat, slightly bent at the rim, shaded a face carved with years of wisdom, patience, and stories untold. To the people inside, he looked like just another lonely old man who didn't quite belong in a restaurant where everything from the marble floors to the golden chandeliers screamed wealth. What they didn't know was this: the man who had just entered was a billionaire from Japan, a man who had spent decades building an empire with humility instead of pride. He made his way slowly to a small table by the window, offering the hostess a polite smile. She hesitated. One glance at his worn coat, and she assumed he couldn't possibly afford to be there. Still, she sat him down out of courtesy, dropped a menu in front of him, and walked away without another word. The old man didn't complain. He simply folded his hands and watched the room with quiet interest: businessmen ordering expensive wines, couples whispering affectionately, tourists photographing dishes they'd never forget. He raised his hand a few times, hoping to catch a waiter. Each one pretended not to notice. Minutes turned into half an hour. His water glass stayed empty. No one took his order. But the old man waited calmly, with the patience of someone who had spent an entire lifetime being underestimated. His name was Mr. Kenji Takahiro, one of Japan's most respected industrialists. He wasn't in New York for business. He had come to revisit the city where, decades ago, he fell in love with a woman who changed his life. They had written letters across oceans, dreamed of a future together, but time and distance had pulled them apart. She was gone now, and he had returned only to walk through memories of a love he could never forget. As whispers spread among the guests, some wondered why he was sitting alone. Others assumed he was confused, maybe lost. The staff exchanged looks, debating whether they should ask him to leave. And then she saw him. Emily, a new waitress juggling 2 jobs to support her sick mother and younger brother, noticed the gentle way he bowed his head every time someone walked past. The gesture reminded her of her late father, who had worked in Japan years ago and adopted the same humble bow. Something inside her stirred. Without thinking twice, she approached the man. When he looked up, she greeted him with a warm smile and a soft bow. Then, in careful Japanese, she said, "Konnichiwa, o genki desu ka?" "Hello, how are you?" The entire restaurant went silent. The old man's eyes widened, then softened, glowing with gratitude. In a trembling voice, he replied in Japanese, asking for her name. Emily bowed again and explained that she had learned the language in school and admired Japanese culture. From that moment, something beautiful unfolded. Understanding beyond words. A bridge of respect formed between 2 strangers. Emily poured his water herself. She adjusted his napkin, and instead of coffee, she brought him a warm cup of green tea, whispering that she remembered many Japanese guests preferred it. The old man placed his hands together, bowed deeply, and took a sip. For the first time that day, he felt seen, not as a billionaire, not as a customer, but simply as a human being. People around them watched in silence, guilt washing over those who had ignored him. Even the manager froze when he overheard the man's name. When the meal ended, Mr. Takahiro asked for the check. The manager rushed over, apologizing and insisting the meal was free. But the old man gently shook his head. "No," he said softly, "respect cannot be free." He reached into his coat and handed Emily a small black card, one used only by the world's wealthiest. Along with it, he gave her a gold-embossed business card. Emily read the name, and her breath caught. Kenji Takahiro Group. The manager nearly dropped the tray in his hands. With a kind smile, the billionaire bowed to Emily. "Kindness," he said, "is the most precious thing in the world, and you gave it freely. Thank you." The next day, the restaurant buzzed with news. A national newspaper had published a story about a Japanese billionaire who visited anonymously and praised a young waitress for her kindness. Emily arrived to find an envelope waiting for her. Inside was a handwritten note, a sponsorship letter. Mr. Takahiro offered to pay for her college education and support her family's expenses as a way to honor her compassion. The same compassion that reminded him of the woman he once loved. Tears filled Emily's eyes. It wasn't the money that moved her. It was the reminder that kindness, especially the kind given freely, has the power to change someone's life forever. As the sun set that evening, Emily stood by the same window where the old man had sat. Her reflection glowed in the fading gold light, and somewhere far across the ocean, an elderly man sipped his tea and smiled, grateful that in a rushing world, one young waitress remembered that kindness still speaks every language, because in the end, kindness is the richest form of wealth we will ever hold. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness, where we keep gentle stories alive.